You can't just walk in like you own the plane. That's what she said, loud enough for half the terminal to hear. And you know what? For a split second, it was almost funny, the way she puffed herself up like she was guarding state secrets, not just a line of tired travelers. But then you saw the kid, this quiet, scrawny boy in a gray hoodie, holding his ticket like it was a lifeline, and it stopped being funny real fast. His name was Jaden Morales, 14 years old. He didn't argue, didn't even look up, just slid the ticket forward with these trembling hands like he'd been taught his whole life to not make trouble. "Whose ticket did you steal, kid?" The TSA agent, Hall, her name tag said, snapped, and before anyone could even breathe, rip. Just like that, she tore his boarding pass in two, holding the pieces up like she'd caught a criminal. Phones went up, gasps scattered through the crowd. But Jaden didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He just bent down slowly, picked up the scraps off the carpet, and kept his head down like maybe if he stayed small enough, this nightmare would pass. Somewhere in the corner, a janitor stopped mopping. He didn't move right away, just stood there, watching, but his hand slipped into his pocket, pulling out a phone. Security eventually dragged Jaden to a hard plastic chair near gate 51. Nobody sat next to him. Nobody asked if he was okay. They just left him there, staring at his shoes. Inside his hoodie, pressed close to his chest, was a black velvet card sleeve, one he'd been told never to use unless it was life or death. And today, well, today wasn't supposed to be anything like this. He was just flying to Miami to visit his uncle. Just another kid on a plane. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. Behind the glass, Agent Hall was laughing with another officer. "Some punk thought he was flying first class," she said, shaking her head. Poor thing. Jaden stared at the torn ticket in his lap, then at the faded photo of his mom tucked into his passport. His lips moved, just barely. "Should I call him Mama?" he whispered to her face. And miles away, near baggage claim, that janitor who hadn't spoken all morning finally made a call. 6 seconds. One word. That's all it took. 10 minutes later, silence swept through Terminal B. Not loud, not frantic, just this heavy, crushing quiet, like the air knew what was coming before anyone else did. 3 black SUVs rolled up behind the restricted zone. A man stepped out, tall, wrapped in a dark gray overcoat, black gloves, his expression carved from stone. He didn't rush. He didn't yell. He just walked. His name was Marco Morales. Most people didn't know the name. Those who did never said it out loud. To Chicago, he was a ghost. To the people who crossed him, he was something worse. He didn't show a badge. Didn't need one. TSA officers moved aside without being told. Jaden saw him coming, and for the first time that day, he smiled. This tiny, relieved smile that looked like hope finally decided to show up. Marco didn't even glance at Agent Hall when he reached his son. He knelt, wiped the dust off Jaden's pants, and said softly, "Did they touch you?" "No, sir," Jaden whispered. Marco nodded once, then straightened. Now he looked at Hall, and in the quietest, calmest voice, he said, "You tore a ticket. Now I'm tearing the silence." Hall stumbled back a step. I didn't know he was." Marco lifted one gloved hand. "Just that. No yelling. No cursing, just stillness. I don't care what you thought he was. I care what you did." Behind him, a man in a black suit tapped his earpiece. The security cameras blinked once, then every screen went black. Marco leaned in just enough that Hall could feel his breath. "This isn't about a flight," he said, voice low. "It's about what you thought you had the right to tear." Then he turned, reached for his son's hand. "Come, Jaden. We don't ask for seats. We fly above them." The boy stood, calm, collected, his hoodie still hiding half his face. He stepped closer to Hall, handed her the torn ticket, and whispered, "Keep it," as a reminder. And then he walked away, right through the gate. No scanning, no boarding pass, no questions. People moved aside like the sea parting, eyes wide, breaths held. No one recorded anymore. No one dared. Hall stood frozen, her badge suddenly feeling heavier on her chest. Then, like a bad omen, the terminal lights flickered once, just once, and shut off for 6 seconds. When they flicked back on, Hall's badge beeped red. Access denied. Jaden didn't look back. Not once. But hours later, someone found the torn ticket taped to the wall behind Hall's desk, pieced back together. Underneath, written in permanent black marker, were 4 words: he was never alone. And here's the thing. This wasn't just about a boy and a torn ticket. It was about the way a 14-year-old kid, quiet as he was, refused to shrink. He looked her dead in the eye, calm as ever, and in that moment, the whole terminal felt smaller, not because Marco Morales stormed in, but because Jaden didn't let her break him. You know what I mean? Stories like this, they don't end with sorry. They start with accountability to SO now. It's your turn. If you've ever watched something like this happen, if you've ever wanted to say something but didn't, think about it. Share this. Talk about it. Because the kid they tried to dismiss, he's the one they had to answer to. You think that's where it ended? Yeah, I wish. But real life's messier than that. Marco didn't storm out like some hero in a movie. He just walked, slow and deliberate, Jaden at his side, like the world already belonged to them. People stared, whispered, but nobody dared step in. And maybe that's the saddest part. No one ever steps in until it's too late. Hall stood frozen by her desk, clutching that torn ticket like it might burn her fingers. Her badge still flashed red every time she swiped it. The other TSA officers avoided looking at her, but you could feel it, this shift in the air, like everyone knew something had changed. That's the thing about power. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just walks in, quiet as smoke, and when it leaves, you're left choking on the silence. But here's where it gets interesting. Because, for a brief moment, someone did step in. Her name was Natalie Reese. Early 30s, sharp business suit, platinum hair pulled tight in a bun. She'd been sitting 2 rows behind Jaden when it happened. And yeah, she stayed quiet at first. Most people did. But when Marco and Jaden disappeared past the gate, Natalie moved. I remember this because people talk about her now, like she was crazy or brave, depending on who you ask. She marched straight up the hall, heels clicking on the linoleum, and said, "You think this is done? You humiliated a kid in front of an entire terminal, and you think you just get to stand here?" Hall snapped. "Ma'am, you need to return to your gate." "No." Natalie cut in, loud enough that a few phones went back up. "No, I think I'll stay right here." She turned to the crowd, waving a hand at the cameras still pretending to be off. And I think some of us should start asking why they suddenly went dark. Don't you? Hall's face went pale. Natalie leaned closer, lowering her voice, but not enough to keep anyone from hearing. You ever wonder what happens when the wrong people watch you cross the wrong line? Because trust me, sweetheart, this isn't over. And she was right. Because the next morning, Terminal B looked different. The janitor, you remember him, right? The quiet guy who made that 6-second call. Well, he was back at his usual spot, mopping floors, head down like nothing happened. But taped neatly beside that reconstructed ticket were 2 new photos. One was Hall's badge, snapped in half. The other was Natalie, smiling, standing outside the terminal with a simple handwritten note under it. Some still speak. Now, nobody knew who put those photos there, but everyone had theories. Some said Marco's people did it, like a warning. Some swore it was Natalie herself, trying to start a fight she couldn't win. And some whispered that it was the janitor, the man who'd started all this with just one word. Hall didn't show up to work that day. Or the next. TSA released some bland statement about administrative review, but you could feel it in the way travelers whispered near Gate 49. That woman wasn't coming back. At least not here. And Jaden? Well, that's the part that stays with me the most. He didn't post a video, didn't do interviews, didn't even talk about it to the few reporters who tried to follow him to Miami. But someone, somewhere, leaked one blurry photo of him on the plane, sitting by the window, hoodie pulled low, staring out at the clouds. He looked calm, like nothing had happened. Or maybe like everything had. You want to know the twist? Here it is. A week later, Natalie Reese disappeared. No missing persons report, no news coverage, just gone. Her apartment emptied overnight. And taped to her door, written in the same thick black marker as the note on Hall's wall, were 4 new words: "Some don't stay quiet." Now, you tell me, what do you think that means? Did she join them? Did she run? Or did she just vanish because some people don't get to walk away after poking at shadows like Marco Morales? I don't have the answer. Maybe no one does. But here's what I do know. Hall thought she was dealing with some scared kid. She forgot that sometimes the quiet ones aren't alone. And when the right people decide you crossed a line, there's no going back. So, yeah, you can sit there and scroll past this, pretend it's just another story, or you can talk about it. Because if you were standing at gate 49 that day, if you saw that boy's hand shake while a grown woman tore his ticket like it meant nothing, what would you have done? Would you stay silent, or would you speak?